Hey, how you doing? My name is Robert Lopez. I was always also known as Big Limpy from White Fence. I grew up in Boyle Heights. In 1959, I was born 7:42 a.m. I grew up in the projects of Aliso Village, Pico Gardens. When I was a kid, we used to run around, and break into the trains and break into houses and break into the companies over there. We were little mocosos, little youngsters running around over there. Seen a lot of gang activity, lot of bloodshed, and a lot of things going on when I was a kid. So um, I was given that opportunity to see that kind of life, running around as a kid. Uh, Nowadays, you guys have the video games and you guys have all this technology, but we had the streets. Those are the things that we were brought up on. The chancla, the extension cord, the hairbrush. That's how mom did it. She did us up. She would light us up. And I guess that's kind of the way where I kind of got to a place to where like you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing. My mom used to take off and she used to work the bar. She was young. She's raising five kids. I'm the eldest, so she would take off at 9. She would leave me alone with my brothers and sisters, and so she would take off and do her thing. And she used to leave her Salem's in the freezer, and she used to leave her Budweiser in the refrigerator. So me and my cousin Richard, we used to get into it. We used to drink her beer and we used to smoke the cigarettes. And I'm talking about like 8, 9 years old. Raising my brothers and sisters at a young age. But you know what? It finally came to a place to where, like, I just got older, and I would just end up staying up later at night and staying out and running away from home, and started getting into trouble at a young age. And by the age of 10, I was already at the juvenile hall system. I was already at Central Juvenile Hall and Los Padrinos and uh, McLaren Hall and all these other juvenile halls that they have out there. I even went to a juvenile hall in Phoenix, Arizona, Maricopa County Juvenile Hall. I went out there and got into trouble out there. So it seemed to be that everywhere I went, I got into trouble. I grew up from Boyle Heights, like I said. I was from White Fence. Well, White Fence is a gang that started in 1939. Over in the streets of LA, of East LA, Boyle Heights, and LA is known, White Fence, as like one of the oldest gangs around. We're notorious for doing a lot of crazy things. It's a well-known gang over there in Boyle Heights. Over there on off of Euclid and Granada. Grande Vista. All that area, Boyle Heights, right there. We're notorious for doing a lot of crazy things. We're head a lot of gang activity. There's certain gangs in the area back in them days, but White Fence is well known. I'm just a product from that. Growing up with the homeboys out there, they were the ones that were looking out for me because that's all I knew. That's all I had. Then I got older. I got into juvenile hall. From juvenile hall, I started going to the county jail, but I ended up going to Jackson High School. It was an all boys school that is now closed down. For a lot of you guys that know about that school, it was Gladiator School. It was Warrior School. You couldn't even go to the restroom alone. You had to take a couple homeboys with you so you wouldn't get jumped taking a leak. But other than that, that's the way it was for me. I was robbing and stealing and beating up people and jumping people, running in packs. I was infatuated by the lowrider scene back in the '70s. The '60s. The Chicano Power, the Viva la Raza. The lowriders, the headbands. That's who I felt like I was. That's who I belonged to. And so that's what I pursued. The lowrider scene. The Chicano style. The gang life, trying to have the best chick, trying to dress clean, feed me, trying to be sharp, everything creased down, shoe shine, and I wanted to look good when I went to jail, when I took that picture, but it's just the way it was. I started getting into weed and I started getting into cocaine, and I started drinking and smoking, and eventually I started taking acid and smoking honey oil and all kinds of different weed back in them days, and I eventually grew up and started going to the county jail, and then from the county jail, I started using heroin, methamphetamine. I started slamming it. I was smoking it, slamming it, anything that I could get in my system, to numb me from the lifestyle that I was living. It was like I didn't believe that I had a life. I didn't believe that I belonged in this world. I didn't belong to nothing or nobody. I was always alone. It was like I was the thumb to the hand. The fingers stand right up, but I was the thumb. I was always going the other way. I was always going aside from what everybody else was doing. And eventually, I got myself into more trouble, and I started picking up robberies and attempted murders, and stuff like that. And so I ended up started going to prison. I remember the first time I went to prison. I went to Avenel State Prison. I remember the first time I went. I had picked up a robbery with some girl in the middle of the night. We were walking around, and I did a robbery, and we took off, down the street, and I robbed a restaurant, and I robbed a man walking down the street, and I threw everybody on the ground and took all the money and everything, and I even grabbed a Pepsi out of the thing. I even took a Pepsi, and I remember running down the street, and we took off, and we were over there over there in Highland Park, and we were coming back, and we got to Avenue 26 over there, and we decided to stop and wait for the bus, and the next thing you know, it's like the helicopter and cops were all over the place, and they pulled out their shotguns and their guns on us, and they threw us on the middle of the street, and they had us laid out, and they got us. And I remember going to the county and fighting my case, and I remember they gave me 3 years for the robbery, and I remember that was my first time, and I was kind of tripping on it, you know what I mean, at first, that I was going to prison, and you hear all these stories about how prison life is, and all the hardcore stuff and all the things that go on, and I was scared, and I didn't know if I was going to make it. I thought they were going to know that it was my first time and to take advantage of me, of maybe make me do things, to kill people. I don't know. My mind was just running all over the place, and that was my first encounter with going to prison. I remember when I caught the chain. They chained me up, and they put me in the bus, and I just remember my mind was all over the place, and I was just thinking the worst. That was my first encounter with prison. I think that after it's all said and done, when I was in prison, I fit right in. I didn't even have no clue, no idea that I was going to fit right in prison. It was just like I was made for it. My fear quickly left me. You know what I mean? I was surrounded, by my fellow Southern Mexican associates, because I'm from East LA, Boyle Heights, and that's how I rolled. I was a Sureño, the gang didn't matter anymore. It was about the unity of us in there, watching each other's back, and so the time came where we had a fight against, the guys from Fresno, the northern California, the norteños, sometimes we would fight against the blacks, we would fight against the Crips, or the Bloods, or whoever else, the Bulldogs, we would get into it with other areas of the state of California. Everybody had their territory, and so yeah, I grew up to learn to hate that, to hate other people from other areas, and of course, we as Southern Mexicans, we don't like the Northerners, but I ended up now I've got all through my whole life, I've got 45 years in and out of prisons, doing the bad things, you know what I mean? It's like that's all I knew, nothing good could happen for me, nothing good could come out of my life. I thought I was just born to be bad, you know what I mean? So I pursued that life, I was running hand in hand with the devil, him and I were road dogs, you know what I mean? He was driving and I was a shotgun, wherever he took me is where I was gonna go, is what I was gonna do. It didn't matter, get off, do this, get off, do that, let's do this, let's do that, and I would say, yes, sir. That's how I ran, with the dark side of life, and eventually, it just got me in and out of trouble, more prison, into more dark things, I thank God that because of my life, I've been able to be an example to my brothers and sisters. They never got into gangs, they never got into drugs, they drank, but they never got into that stuff, and I thank God that that they have all these careers, they have good lifestyles. My brother's a physician's assistant, another brother's a UPS driver. Another sister's a general manager for a staffing company. My other sister's a nurse, a masseuse. So they all got good things. But they always remember for the things I used to tell them. I would always tell them, don't be like me. Don't do the things that I do. You know what I mean? It's not going to get you nowhere. Go get a career, get a life. All my nieces, my nephews, my kids, they know, how I was and the things that I did. And that my family didn't even want me at the birthday parties. They didn't even want me around. They would ask, is Robert going to be there? And if they knew I was going to be there, they weren't going to show up because they knew something was going to go down. Because that's all I did was I brought trouble with me. I took trouble with me and I took it everywhere I went. I'm surprised I didn't name myself Trouble. But I just want to let you guys know that that it's a lifestyle that I lived, it's a lifestyle that I pursued, and it got me nowhere. But little did I know that it was going to become my testimony. Little did I know that God was preparing me for this time as now. That all the stories, all the things that I went through. I've been stabbed, I've been shot, I've been left for dead. I got a scar that goes across my head. I'm missing a finger. I got a slice up my stomach. I got stab marks right here. I can't lift this arm up. I'm missing teeth. My foot is messed up. There's a lot of things just from the streets that brought this lifestyle to me. So it comes with a price. For those of you that think that you're all cool and you're all bad and you want to be the gangster, you don't know a gangster until you've lived with one, until you become really one that really lived it. You know what I mean? It's like just because you get a couple of tattoos and you put your hat sideways and now you be sagging your pants, you think you're all gangster, but you ain't lived it. You don't know yet until you walk in the shoes of a real gangster. But you know what? It's not about that. It's about who we are now. You know what I mean? And for me, it's a lifestyle that brought me a lot of anguish, a lot of heartache, a lot of hurt to my family, to my kids. All these years of my life, 45 years of my life, it took away from my family. It took away from my kids. When I got out of prison this last time after doing 12 years, I was looking at 56 to life. I had to fight 2 murders.